Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we are going to take the cylinder head off and go ahead and send it to the shop that is going to do the head porting for the KLX. Finally at the point here, going to send it in, then get it on the dyno, get to ripping. But first things first, of course we have to disassemble it, get the head off, so that's going to include things like taking off the valve cover, of course, all the stuff up here, the exhaust, throttle body, chain tensioners, and marking up those cams, because if you know, haven't had a good experience with cam timing, so I'm always sure to mark those up. But I've already done this once, so should be pretty easy. Just make sure to take my time, don't miss any steps, and that way when we put it back together, should go back smoothly. So let's go ahead, get set up here, and start tearing it down. Alright, so let's pop off these plastics real quick. Now we can go ahead, pop off this fuel tank, bolts here, same on the other side. One right here, got a connector and the fuel hose under there, and then some vacuum vent lines on the other side. Alright, so here's what I'm talking about with my fuel line. I think it was a few videos back when I did the valve check. You can see how it's kinda kinked here. So I'm not sure if it's kinked enough to replace it or not. Let me know what you guys think, but looks like I can just cut this one off, get a new one. So I might just do that. Alright, next thing I can do here is go ahead and remove this EJK. We'll no longer be needing it. If you guys missed it, we did switch to a power commander, which I will be installing later this week to get ready for the dyno. So for the time being, shouldn't need this EJK, so let's go ahead and move it out of the way so we can clean up some of these wires and whatnot. So another thing here before we get moving along is that, as you can see here, I have another injector for the KLX, and reading on some of the forums, apparently in Asia, overseas, they're able to use a Ninja 650 injector, which is what I have right here. But you can obviously see the connectors are way different. Definitely not going to plug in there. So I don't know what I'm missing here, but I don't think you can swap out the pigtails or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know. If you know how they use the Ninja 650 injector, let me know. But when we go on the dyno, we're going to use the stock injector, see how it handles the ported head, and see what the duty cycle's at. And then if we need a bigger injector, then we need a bigger injector. Alright, next thing we need to do here is go ahead and pop off the exhaust. Gonna use the string here to pull off the spring on the exhaust. Alright, so got some gloves and some eye protection. Let's go ahead and pull this thing off. And just like that. Wow. Alright, wow, that was easier than putting it on for sure. Alright, next thing is the header here. Getting off these exhaust nuts. And we're going to play the usual game of dropping the nut down onto the skid plate. Fun. Next thing here, let's go ahead and pull off the throttle body. Got to take off the cover here for the throttle cables. Okay, cover is off. Let's go ahead and label one of them so that way it's easier to put back in when we assemble it. Left. Alright, throttle cables are out of the way. Now we can go ahead and start disconnecting every sensor here on the throttle body, and I know one of them is quite a pain. So let's go ahead and call that one connector A. Got an A there and an A there. So here's one on the bottom, so we'll go ahead and call this one, I guess we'll call it bottom. So also on this harness we have the coolant temperature sensor, so we'll go ahead and call that one coolant. Now we got one on the top, the throttle body, go ahead and call that B. We already have an A, so let's call this one B. Put one on the harness connector, and then we'll go ahead and put a piece of tape on the throttle body connector. Now we have one more connector here on the bottom, and this is the one that is a real big pain. Okay, got all the connectors off, so next thing we can do is go ahead and loosen the clamp for the throttle body here and then here, and then we should be able to take out the throttle body after that. And if I remember correctly, I think you have to twist it to the right, and it makes it come out a lot easier. Alright, throttle body is out. You twist it to the right in order to get it to come out. Next thing I'm going to do here is going to drain the coolant here. So there's a drain plug right here, and I'm going to have to take the cap off. Then we also got to drain that reservoir. And then after that's done, you can go ahead and start taking stuff off the head, thermostat, oil pipe, and valve cover, and we should be getting close to getting the head off. Alright, so got my safety glasses on here, and we're gonna go ahead and remove this drain bolt. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's cool. Real cool. And that's why you wear eye protection. Last time that didn't happen. Huh. Oh my. Alright, now that I've got most of this mess cleaned up, I can go ahead and take off this reservoir and drain it. Before I take the valve cover off, I'm going to go ahead and remove the fan and anything else that could have a possibility of dropping down into the cam chain tunnel, but I think the fan is the only thing. So after that we should be good to go to take the valve cover off, and then mark up the cams, take those out, and then the cylinder head will be next. Alright, got the fan off. Now we're going to go ahead and take off the oil pipe and the thermostat. Oil pipe off. Next is a thermostat. So now, if you remember from the big bore install video, we have the thermostat and the fat side goes in, so remember that when we go back to install. Okay, so before we touch any tensioners, cam chain, whatnot, we are going to make sure that the motor is at top dead center here. Alright, so we are at top dead center now. So let's go ahead and take off the valve cover, mark up the cams. First though, I'm going to try and get off as much oil as I can, so that way the marker sticks. Right here, let's say this is the tooth, I'm marking right here in between them, and then I'm marking the chain link that goes inside of that tooth. So just to verify, at top dead center here, intake and exhaust are lined up. Got my 3 marks here, so it should be good to take off the cam cap. As you can see as well, the lobes are facing outward, which is also another good way to tell if you are near top dead center. So before we remove the cam cap, we got to take the tension off the chain, which we can do now that we have the cams marked up. So we're going to take out the big bolt on the main tensioner first, then we'll take out the 2 mounting bolts have you, and then after that we can go ahead and remove the sub tensioner, which is just 1 big bolt. Alright, now that we got the tensioners off, we can go ahead and remove the cam cap. We're going to remove the bolts in the back first. Well, loosen those up first, and then we'll move to the front ones and loosen them evenly, because like I said in my big bore video, if you take out the front bolts here first and
the chain still has tension on the cams and you still have the cam cap on the back here, could bend the cam. So I'm going to take them out in the back first and then ease them all out. So I still have my diagram here from the big bore. So here are the 2 long bolts. The driver's side is the left side of the bike. If you're sitting on the bike like you're sitting in a car, passengers obviously the other side. So there's 2 longer bolts. Gonna keep that in mind while I'm taking them out. All right, so got all the bolts out, and now I gotta be careful here because I'm pretty sure on the longer bolts there's some dowels right here and right here. So while I'm taking that off, I'm gonna make sure that I don't drop those. Remove this. So the only thing left we have to do here before we can remove the head bolts is the upper engine mount bracket. So there's 1 bolt here and 2 bolts here. We removed the towels here, and now we got to get the 2 smaller head bolts out, which is right there, and 1 right there as well. Sweet, got the 2 small ones out. Now for the big ones. Okay, so we got all the bolts out except for the 2 up here because I was keeping those in because there's washers there and I don't want to drop them. But anyways, the cylinder head is being a bit of a pain. It's not wanting to separate from the cylinder, so I'm gonna try and tap it with rubber handle here, see if I can't get it to separate. I really don't want to replace the base gasket, so once I get the head off I might just lift up the cylinder a little bit and put some Permatex gasket maker on there. But the task at hand, let's go ahead and try and get the head off. Okay, so as you can see, we got the head off. Had to enlist some help from my brother. Got to scrape the head gasket off here, and I'm probably gonna do some liquid gasket here on the cylinder base gasket. But that's gonna do it for today. I will see you guys in the morning to take the head to the machine shop. Alright, so we are in the Corvette right now, taking the cylinder head to the machine shop. Gonna ask them a few questions about the head porting and the valves and a couple other things, so I will get back to you on that. But until we get there, enjoy the ride.
Step up, baby, come and board this. Fly across the country, they can't afford this. Trying to make it, Forbes list, listen for the drums.
Alright, so it looks like we have arrived to the neighborhood. Alright everybody, so we got the head dropped off and had a pretty good conversation about that. We're going to port the head, obviously, that's the main thing we're doing, and asked about the bigger valves, and we are not going to do the bigger valves, and a few reasons why, but we had a big conversation about that, mainly talking about how Kawell makes their valves, the quality of the valves compared to stock. He was explaining to me that on the stock valves, the valves are flat and I don't know if you guys can hear that. This guy's going hard with his music over here. Anyway, so it's flat valve, so better flame propagation. He was explaining that to me. And he also says that the Kawell valves, they tend to be heavier, and the valve that Kawasaki has in there is a good valve, so he said to stick with that. The valves look like they're in good condition. The nitride, I believe he said, it's barely, just barely starting to wear a little bit. And the other thing I talked to him about is throttle body. So the throttle body, he has a guy in Florida do them for a real good price, about $100. And you can port it, I think he said 4 to 5 millimeter. But this week he's not going to do anything with the head. We also talked about other things like the squish of the piston and the cylinder, so I got to measure that. But yeah, the process has started getting the head ported on the KLX, and man, I am pretty excited to get it done. From what we were talking about, should flow a lot better, and yeah, we're hoping for big power numbers. So with that, that is the gist of the information that I gathered from taking the head down there. In summary, not doing the valves because the stock valves are of better quality, and we like I said, talked about how the angle the valve is flat, and on the kibble whites they like to curve them. Of course, we talked about how that affects, you know, how that affects combustion, whatnot. And then the throttle body is something else new, so be patient. We got 1 or 2 KLX videos on the lineup, and then we also have another motorcycle video, which you guys will have to wait and see. Might get to ride some other bikes. Also working on the next build. That ball is rolling in motion. So if you enjoyed, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Also share this to your friends and those who may enjoy it. And if you're not subscribed already, what are you doing? Go down there, hit that subscribe button, get the bell on. Things are just gonna get crazier. But with all that being said, join the club, and I'll see you in the next one.
I'm the motherfucker.